Welcome back to another episode of McDaniel Motorsports channel. Chris here. So it turns out car building is not as linear as you would think. And what I mean by that is I can't put up a video about just wiring, because wiring the entire car start to finish in one video is just not realistic. What we're driving at here is to show you what a process it is to restore a car. Most of you out there probably don't have the attention span, nor you probably don't want to spend the money either, but it's, you could apply what we're doing on this channel to just about anything on any level, but we're mostly about keeping from having to go somewhere and have it worked on by someone else. And so anyway, that's my spiel, but it's just not linear, and that's the reality of putting a car together. You got to do some wiring, you got to do some component installations, you got to plumb this and attach that and fix that or redo this. It's just, anyway. So I am finally with the dash now in the car. I can actually start attaching wires to their correct places, especially under the dash. But the reason I was, putting all the pigtails on the taillights and running that main harness from the firewall back down the track into the trunk of the car is because that plug is fixed on the end that attaches to the dash or the bulkhead connector. So that is fixed. I don't want to shorten it, but so what I did after I got the dash in, I knew how long my harness was going to be, what was going to be attaching the rear taillight harness to the system is. So this is the connector that goes to the bulkhead, and the rear light harness connector is now up here. So I've got that. I like to have my connectors up and out of the way so you can't see them when you're in the car. So I ran it basically through this little plastic track and down into here, which is where the factory stuff was ran. This is my dome light here. I've got everything labeled just with tape, so it's easy when I go to connect everything. I know it's kind of redundant, some people might say, but I know what it's for. But when I go to wire everything, it's going to probably be a couple weeks from now, and it's just easier for me to know. So and of course all these wires are labeled every 3 inches. So back to the rear harness. So I basically pulled about a foot back. So basically I pulled this wire back this way, and that connector obviously is fixed, like I mentioned it earlier. And so I really wanted to keep from having too much slack in the wire. But as you can see, it runs through this track, goes around there into the trunk. And so now I've got all this. Some of this is my trunk light switch, so let me get this out of the way. And that trunk light also. So now here's the harness that goes to the rear lights. And so I had it taped up to this point to where I was about a foot right here, where I was breaking off my gas line sending wire. So I'm basically stripping back a foot so I can, when this wire is attached to here, sorry, this is not easy. So it'll take off, somewhere in here to the gas gauge hole, which is right there, and it goes through this little grommet here. So it's really more of a tidy thing I'm doing here. I just can't stand wires going everywhere. It just bothers me. So yeah. So let me get set up here, and I'm gonna strip this back, and then I'll get right back to you in just a sec. All right. I just had to make some adjustments with that foot that I just, or the foot of slack I just took out. So now that that's all done, I wanted to share how this all goes together. So obviously this is a 69 charger, so it's got two different turn signals and running lights, and then this one is just running lights. So obviously these guys will blink, these two, and then this guy will just be on with the headlights along with this guy and this guy. So running lights, turn signals, pretty normal stuff. So in the sheet metal phase of this project, when we put in the tail panel actually has these little clips. I don't know if you can see them in there. Here's one of them. It's got 3 on each side, and so that's where the main this harness basically will pull through across to the right passenger side here, if that makes sense. And so what I have to do is, let me get this set up here. And so in order to wire this, obviously they have connectors, so you can remove the taillights and the harness doesn't have to pull out of the car. So I got to pull left turn wire out and clip it. So like, probably gonna go like that. I like to do the same thing on both sides, so I have the same amount of slack on both sides. So what's going to happen now is, now that I've got my other left turn, I will put these guys together and jump out of, so the way it's going to be is I'm going to jump out of the far left here, and use that same wire into a connector, which will connect into the left turn on this guy, and it'll jump out of that guy and go into this guy. So you basically just have to cut the wire, use one of these connectors, these guys right here that they supply, connect them together. Some are actually wider than others, so this is a single wire connector. You can see that. It's my needy cat behind me. And then you can kind of see how these guys are much bigger, so you want to use these guys for 2 wires, maybe even 3. So I'm going to use this guy, and basically the same thing goes for the running lights. I'm going to clip them here, do them the same length. The tricky part is that Stuart, what is it? I swear, he's quiet all day, and then I either get on the phone or start filming and he starts yelling. So even though the running lights are running through to the right side, I'm going to jump out here because I have to make my 3 connections here. So basically I'm just try to make these all same length. Cut that, pull back the running lights here. So now you can see my 2 pairs here. So that'd be 2 pairs there for 1 plug. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, for 1 plug, and then my reverse light is this light green one, or the backup light. This one actually takes off through this little grommet right here. So I will get that guy out of this mess and get it ran through there. Actually, I probably won't do that yet because I want to wrap all of these up nice and tight and electrical tape. So, all right, so I need another hand to get these guys stripped down, and I'll be right back. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen these types of connectors, but they're very standard in the automotive industry. So they get 2 crimps basically. It's a lot similar to a spark plug wire, to where one of them grabs the contact or the copper part of the wire, which is what I will fold over first. And I'm sure there's a tool for this, but I just use my crimpers or my wire strip pliers. Give those guys a good smash. And then the other ones are designed to grab on to the insulation and hold that as well. Kind of a pain, but if you want your stuff to look factory and, well, follow along on the directions, that's what you got to live with. So that's what you're going to end up with there. Kind of see how both with the cattail in the way. Yeah. he just has to do that. Like, just let me know he's here, just in the way. Yeah, so that's what we're looking for. And so I got to jump out of that guy, and so this guy will go in. Grab my three-way connector here, this guy there, and you want to pay attention to which way that little shark tooth is on the top, and then you want to orient them so they actually go in to the top of the connector. And I just kind of put them in there loosely, and then it shows me which slot the wire I'm connecting is supposed to go into. And let's see, this guy goes to that. They are kind of a pain, but you want to hear a click. So this guy would be, there we go. So there's a barb on every one of these guys. If you could see that, this little barb right here on top holds it into that little plastic connector. So that's the click that you heard. So now I've got my left turn here, and now I'm going to make my running lights also up. And yeah, I mean, you can jump these any way you want, really. You can start from the inside and backtrack, or you can go the way I'm doing it. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're getting voltage to where you're intending to put it. It really doesn't matter. And this is obviously this wiring harness is not factory. It's nothing like factory, and that's okay. I'm not trying to make OEM restoration here. This is just a nice driver, and I plan to drive this car a lot, so it's not that important to be all OEM and original. Now, I know you guys have heard me say it before, but I am trying to use all the original parts as much as I can within reason. But I'm not going to go crazy on this stuff. It's not practical, and it's way too expensive already. Yeah, so these little guys crimp each wire. Yeah, these are 2-wire connectors, so you want to make sure you get a good bite on the insulation and the copper. But they are a little tedious compared to like butt connectors and stuff. It's not for everybody. Okay, now get back in there. Make sure. Okay, I'm going to the left. And there's a little slot in here in the connector, and you're probably wondering, which side does the barb go on? Well, there's a slot in the center on the male, we'll call this the male side even though it's got female connectors in it. You put the barb through that little slot, and then that connector, once you put it in there, you're going to hear that, and they don't pull out. So that one's made up, and it's jumped. They're both jumped to accommodate the next bulb or the next light fixture. And reverse lights are going to run through. My right tail light is the dark green. It's all kind of universal trailer stuff. So it's, in domestic cars before, I want to say 2000, they all had this wiring combo. Yellow was left turn signal, dark green was right turn signal, brown is always running lights and brake lights, and then on a trailer, white is ground. Some might be different, but in my experience, it's all pretty typical, unless you have a different. So if you have a amber tail light on your truck and a red brake light, that's a good indicator that you're going to need an adapter harness for your trailer wiring lights. So one of my first jobs was at U-Haul as a hitch mechanic. Did a lot of wiring on trailers and trucks and brake controllers and stuff, so that's where that comes from. So, oh, and I got up ground here. So, we'll do the ground later. The ground, typically these lights ground through the fixture, but the way these plugs are set up, they actually have a slot for ground in the plug. So yeah, they're grounded to here, but the ground needs to be landed on this male. It's kind of weird. Like, this is male, the plug is male to me, but the connectors are female, and vice versa. See what I mean? Like, this looks like a female plug, but it's got male, so it's hard to, well, I guess it's pretty appropriate these days to have a loose outlook on that stuff. So that's as far as I'm going with that. I'll let you cancel.